This is how absurd Disney is right now. A company that just got done telling shareholders its future is built on creativity turned around and started cutting the people who help decide what the movies even look like. Not metaphorically, not in the same vague corporate restructuring kind of way. Literally. This week, Disney began a fresh round of layoffs expected to hit about 1,000 jobs across the company. And according to the reporting from the Wrap and Deadline and others, Marvel was one of the divisions hit hard, including visual development, the concept art and design side that helped shape the look of the MCU before a frame is ever shot. And in the exact same week, the first public tracking for The Mandalorian and Grogu starts with a $71 million domestic low-end opening estimate. Now, that is a forecast, not a final result. But yes, that low end starts below Solo's $84.4 million three-day opening. Same week, same studio, same problem. The check's already cleared. The artist just didn't. Hey everyone, welcome back. If you're new here, this is the Critical Nerd, where we follow the money, read the spin, and drag the corporate nonsense back into the sunlight. So if you would, do me a favor, smash that like button, subscribe, ring that notification bell, and let's talk about one of the most revealing Disney stories in months. Because this is Disney in one headline. New CEO, new corporate language, same old bloodletting. Disney announced in February that Josh D'Amaro would replace Bob Iger effective March 18th, and that Dana Walden would become president and chief creative officer that same day. At Disney's annual shareholders meeting on March 18th, D'Amaro leaned into the language of creativity and people, even quoting Walt Disney himself. It takes people to make the dream a reality. Less than a month later, here we are. Now, earlier this week, more specifically, Tuesday, April the 14th, Josh D'Amaro sent out the memo. About 1,000 positions are being eliminated. Reuters reported the cuts touched the marketing group, studio and television operations, ESPN, products and technology, and certain corporate functions. D'Amaro's own wording in the email said Disney needed a more agile and technologically enabled workforce to meet tomorrow's needs. So no. This isn't some tiny trim. This is not somebody in accounting finding spare change in the couch cushions. This is one of the first major headlines of the D'Amaro era. And the headline is Layoffs. That tells you everything. Not, we fix Marvel. Not, we have a plan for Star Wars. Not, we're rebuilding trust with audiences. Layoffs. The priority right now is not restoring the magic. The priority is protecting the margins. Now, here's the part that really jumps off the page. Deadline reported layoffs across most Marvel departments, including film and TV, production, comics, franchise, finance, legal, and visual development. The reporting says the cuts in visual development were deep enough that Marvel is keeping a smaller internal team to oversee outside artists hired on a project-by-project basis going forward. Gizmodo, citing that reporting, and the Forbes report that really pushed the story, described it as almost wiping out the visual development team. That's not a minor detail. That is not some side office nobody notices. Visual development is where the early visual identity gets built. You know, things like character language, costume silhouette, color palettes, world building. The visual DNA of the franchise before the machine ever starts rolling. And if you want a name attached to that legacy, Ryan Meandering is the obvious one. Marvel's own coverage of the art of Ryan Meandering says he has been a key creative force shaping the look of the MCU since the early stages of Iron Man and way back in 2008. So when people say, well, every big company does layoffs, that kind of misses the point. Look at where they cut. They cut into the in-house creative pipeline. They cut into the people helping define what these movies are supposed to look and feel like. And the replacement model appears to be smaller internal oversight and more outside contractors. Maybe that saves money. Maybe. but also means less continuity, less institutional memory, and less of that in-house creative bench that helped make the MCU feel like a real universe instead of a pile of content. And after the last few years of Marvel, that should sound familiar. And it doesn't stop with Marvel. The Wrap reported that the layoffs also hit several publicity-related teams, including 20 people from publicity, the entire home entertainment team, and the EPK team, the people behind electronic press kit material and behind-the-scenes promo content. The same report said Disney pushed back on the idea that the Marvel cuts reached 8%, calling it much smaller, but did not publicly give a number. So this is bigger than one division. This is broader than one bad quarter. This is a company pulling more work out of the building. And Disney was already headed in that direction. Back in February 2024, Disney made a deal handing Sony responsibility for marketing, selling, and distributing Disney's new releases and catalog titles on physical media. So the pattern is right there. Less in-house, more outsourced, more centralized control, more pressure to squeeze value out of old IP while spending less on the people building it. That is not a creative comeback. That is a spreadsheet strategy. Now look at what is happening right alongside all of this. The same week Disney is cutting creative and support staff, the first public box office tracking for The Mandalorian and Grogu lands online. Box Office Theory's public report, dated April the 10th, lists the film with a $71 million three-day low-end opening estimate and notes that forecasts are not final and can move as release gets closer. The article also frames the movie as the return of Star Wars to the big screen after about 6.5 years, following 2019's The Rise of Skywalker. Now put that next to Solo, a Star Wars story, which Solo opened to an $84.4 million domestic debut over its three-day weekend in 2018. So, no, I'm not saying Mandalorian and Grogu is locked to open below Solo. What I'm saying here is this. The public low-end tracking starts there. And that is not exactly the kind of huge first signal you want for a big theatrical return of Star Wars after years away from theaters. That is what makes this framing work so well. Same week, same studio, same problem. Marvel has been wobbling. Star Wars has been living off old brand power more than modern box office dominance. And Disney's answer, well, right now at least, is not to rebuild the bench. It's not to strengthen the creative pipeline. It's not to make the product feel bigger, cleaner, sharper, more essential. It's layoffs. And here's what that looks like in plain English. Disney believes it can keep charging premium franchise prices while running a leaner internal creative machine. That's the bet. Keep the subscriptions flowing, keep the licensing flowing, keep the investor language polished, keep telling the audience these brands are still must-see events, but spend less on people under the hood. Maybe that helps the quarter, maybe that helps the year. But if audiences already feel like Marvel is less special and Star Wars is less theatrical and the magic is more manufactured than earned, then cutting deeper into the pipeline is not fixing the problem. It's just managing the decline more efficiently. And that is a very different thing. So let's run it back a little bit here. Josh D'Amaro officially took over as CEO on March the 18th. Dana Walden stepped into the new president and chief creative officer role the same day. Disney spent that moment talking about creativity, people in the next chapter. Then came the layoffs. About 1,000 jobs across Disney. Marvel hit across multiple departments, including visual development. The Wrap saying home entertainment, EPK, and publicity teams were also hit. And right alongside all of it, the first public Mandalorian and Grogu tracking starts at $71 million on the low end, while Solo opened to $84.4 million back in 2018. That is the story. Not just cuts, not just Marvel, not just Star Wars. It is the contradiction. Disney keeps selling the future as creativity first while cutting into the teams that actually help create the thing they're selling. And that is why the line works. The check's already cleared. The artist just didn't. If you do me a favor, hit like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Let me know in the comments. Do you think this is the start of a real Disney creative reset? Or is it just a more efficient version of the same broken strategy? Keep your expectations low and the receipts high. I'm the Critical Nerd, and I will see you later.